Welcome to another video ViRTUE's Rage. I can't believe I'm doing this many of these. But have no fear. I will continue to write columns. Actually, a counterpart of mine, the Clueless Wrestling columnist, is going to have a good one. He is going to post one up probably in November sometime here under ViRTUE's Rage on No DQ, talking about how star ratings are overrated for wrestling matches. So that's coming up. If you go to nodq.com right now and you search the opinion section, look for a ViRTUE's Rage that I posted earlier today. It might have been yesterday I posted it. And it's Vengeance returning for an open letter. And this time he wrote the open letter to wrestling gimmicks. So you want to read that. That's a really good one. My dog, Hunter, has joined me for this one, as you see how thrilled he is. Hopefully the video doesn't get blurry. I'm just kind of stalling here at the beginning because I know it takes a few minutes for Aaron to share it or for people to see some of these videos on his page, because I rely on Mr. Rift to get people to watch me. But there's a lot I want to talk about. And as you saw on the header, I don't know if it shows up or not, but it says ViRTUE's Rage, WWE versus Indy Wrestling. A majority of what I'm about to talk about is going to relate to that topic. First, I want to give a shout out to, as most of you know, I'm always been a big Vince Russo supporter, and his website and their point of views on wrestling. Although I don't always agree with them, obviously, you know, I do enjoy New Japan and some of those aspects of wrestling. But I want to give a big shout out to Big Vito. Hopefully we will have him as a panel guest very soon on No DQ. And I might even try to talk Jeff Meacham into having him on his Talk Wrestling show. So Big Vito LaGrasso, go follow Vito on Twitter. I believe it's at the Big Vito brand on Twitter. So I think he's getting close to, he's new to this social media stuff this year. I think he's getting close to 1,000 followers. So go follow Big Vito. You remember him from ECW, from WWE, and from WCW. And I believe he was the hardcore champion in WCW. Give him a follow. So shout out to Big Vito. First and foremost, as you saw earlier on the No DQ YouTube page, Aaron Rift and myself broke down the best we could as it happened the departures of WWE today. Emma, Darren Young, Summer Rae. I'm just going to quickly summarize. Summer Rae, no big loss. She was more just like a model for WWE. She wasn't that great of a wrestler. To me, her biggest moment was with Fandango. I know she was on Total Divas. Don't really watch that show. And I know she had a little thing going with Rusev when all that whole Lana engagement stuff broke. But Summer Rae is definitely forgettable. Not that she's not talented, but she's more of a fitness model. So, I mean, go into that line of work, you know. Darren Young had potential, especially tag team with Titus O'Neil. The primetime players were over. They were a good, solid, tandem champions. People that had a catchphrase. Why WWE dismissed that, I don't know. It might have been Darren Young being injured an awful lot. His singles push did not work. Bob Backlund was too overshadowing with that. I mean, how can you have a gimmick where Bob Backlund's your manager and all of a sudden expect people to pay attention to you? So, unfortunately, Darren Young also got an injury with that angle, and it just was time. Again, we don't know if these releases were because WWE had nothing for them and they had to do cuts, or if these are talents that wanted to leave. We know the whole Neville situation, Nia Jax, which supposedly she's coming back. But you can see there's a lot of animosity right now in WWE. And then we're going to talk about Emma. And let's see. Tyler, no shock on Summer Rae. Yeah, I mean, she was just a model. I mean, they want to go into the women's revolution of wrestling. Summer Rae did not fit that mold. And you're right, Darren Young never really did evolve. Again, I don't know. He was hot with the tag team with Titus O'Neil. That was red hot, but I don't know why WWE went away from that. I think Darren Young could have been good for a couple more years with the company if they would have maybe put him back with Titus O'Neil. I think everybody loved the millions of dollars thing, but that sucks for him because he's no longer there. Emma. So what went on with Emma? I mean, when she came into WWE, she was popping bubbles with Santino Marella. It sucked. You know, a lot of indie people know, hey, Emma's a good worker. She's a good wrestler. Well, she went back down to NXT, which was a blessing in disguise because she imagined her character more of like a worker, a wrestler. You know, she came out, she did a little thing where she showed her backside, she turned around with the glasses, you know, she had the little fingerless gloves, and it worked. And she had some really good matches. If you remember, she had a really good match against Asuka. I want to say it was NXT TakeOver London. They brought her back up to the main roster. They paired her with, help me out, I cannot remember her name, Dana Brooke. Never mind. And Emma got hurt. And what sucks is when you're not a big name in WWE, like CM Punk, and you get hurt, you come back and everything you accumulated, any momentum, it's obliterated. It's gone. And with Emma, that's exactly what happened. CM Punk, he was champion while he still had his knee injury, you know, because they wanted him to face The Rock and put The Rock over. And I believe he still had a match with Undertaker at WrestleMania as well because he was CM Punk. But Emma, that's not going to happen. And the fact is, she didn't have what it took to be a sports entertainer. She could not make Emelina work. WWE spent all that time. Now, I'm going to say shame on you, WWE, because if you're going to spend all that money and time on vignettes to create a character, wouldn't you go over it with the talent that first week or two before you put anything on TV to see if it's something that's going to work? I don't understand that whole concept there because that really hurt Emma. And then the fact is, yes, she had to get over her injury, so that was buying time, but they weren't happy with how she was going to portray Emelina, and it got scrapped right away, and all of us wrestling fans were like, really? You're going to do that? And, you know, they brought Emma back. Emma came back as herself before her injury. But the problem is she came back weak. She jobbed. She wasn't very credible. She might have got a cheap win here or there. You bill her against Asuka's debut on the main roster, and a lot of us are thinking squash match. The fact is, Emma got a good 8-9 minute match out of Asuka and another 6 or 7 minute match on Raw back-to-back nights where Emma was like, you know, she held her own against Asuka. Obviously, we knew Asuka was going to go over because they want to probably build her as undefeated, but they didn't build Asuka as dominant, which made Emma look credible. Like, hey, I gave her a run for her money. And then all of a sudden, Emma was released today. So I don't know, and this isn't the first time. I mean, she was released from WWE for shoplifting, although she contested that and she came back. But it's just strange that WWE would go out of their way, and maybe Vince McMahon doesn't understand Asuka. Maybe he thought, well, she can't go out and squash somebody. That'll make Brock look weak. I don't know. We don't know why those matches with Asuka and Emma went as long as they did. We can only assume they wanted to protect Emma, maybe make her feel satisfied. Maybe she was disgruntled, and maybe something came to fruition today, and they had to let her go. Out of all the releases today, that was the biggest botch. I know some other counterparts on No DQ aren't big fans of Emma. I don't want to mention your name, but the fact is Emma's a good worker, and why wouldn't you at least have moved her over to the SmackDown roster or send her back down to NXT to put people over so where she could have her 15 or 20-minute matches? I think that's really all she wanted. So, again, I don't really agree with that, but it does happen. That's WWE. You may already said this stuff, but it may have been Emma's decision to leave, or at least mutual. Yes, I mean, think about that. We are in an era now that CM Punk started where talent wants to leave WWE because they're not happy. Cody Rhodes, huge. And you see the success that they have on the indies, and they're getting booked, and they're using their WWE fame to get indie mark promoters to hire them for shows. So it's working. Everybody knows the Young Bucks make a lot of money on the indie scene. So it's not surprising that, like a Neville, which we don't know what's going to happen with him yet. I didn't know. I guess Neville's a little more high profile of a guy in real life, and maybe he's working everybody. And I saw some stuff on, I want to say it was Ride Along, I think Neville's got a little bit of an Enzo attitude in real life, and maybe I'm wrong with that. That's just speculation from what I saw. Maybe I've been worked. But it's strange that Neville technically isn't released as I'm doing this. And if he is, somebody please let me know in the comments. But very strange. You know, we know Nia Jax is I don't know if she's coming back with a bigger push. He hasn't spoke publicly about that, no. So, I mean, I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen with Neville. But it's that era of CM Punk and Cody Rhodes where you don't have – if you're not happy in WWE, leave. And some of these could be WWE doing cutbacks. You know, they don't have pyros anymore. But we don't know. So I'm going to move on from that. If you want more breakdown and hear Aaron Riff's take on it, go to the No DQ YouTube page and watch the breaking news video from earlier today. Aaron had some of his insight on it as well. Number two, I want to talk about, so since we're talking WWE versus Indy Wrestling, which seems like the battle lines have been drawn. In the past, it was WWE versus WCW. You either liked both or you were on one side of the fence. Today, we don't have that. It failed with TNA working against WWE on Monday nights. You know, I don't know whose idea that was, but that failed. What we have today is WWE versus the Indies. Why do you think Triple H is a proponent of this NXT gig? Why do you think Triple H, that's his baby? Because he wants to kill the Indies, you know, because not kill them, but take the talent from the Indies and make it seem like WWE's the Indies too. That's what NXT is. It's WWE's version of the Indies. And then some of these guys that go to NXT, Drew McIntyre, Bobby Roode, should be right up into the main roster, so I get it. I've been a guy that's always said NXT should be its own brand, but they still treat it as minor leagues. But clearly there's a battle line drawn. I've wrote columns on this before. The Indie NXT fan base is almost a complete divide from the sports entertainment side of WWE fan base. The fans clash. You got your Roman Reigns supporters. You got your Shinsuke Nakamura supporters. It is something. I mean, it draws, you know, we all discuss this on social media. We all troll on social media because most people are either on one side or the other. I try to be on, you know, both because I want to say, I get NXT. I get why you guys like 15 or 20-minute wrestling matches with Mauro Ranallo calling. But also I want to say, why do people crap on like the TLC match at TLC, that main event? To me, that was awesome. That match alone pushed my grade for that event up to an A- because it was something special when you had to pull Roman out of there and you put Kurt Angle in there on a whim. I thought it delivered. Yeah, maybe I slightly overrated the TLC event. Maybe it was only a B or a B+ like I think the others gave it. But look, if you give me some wrestling, which you did with the Finn Balor and AJ match, which, you know, those matches to me are dime a dozen these days. That's why I was a little more critical on that match, and I only said it was like a B+ match. And again, that's from a fan's perspective. I'm not rating these matches like Meltzer does on, you know, with the star system, but I'm allowed to give it a letter grade as a fan for how it entertained me. But I thought the TLC match, and people thought it was a cluster, I thought that match was an A. Borderline match of the year for me, because I'm a sports entertainment guy. I want to be entertained with multiple happenings in a match. Kane turned on Strowman, the dump truck, Kurt Angle comes back out after getting thrown, you know, slammed through the table. It was all of the ups and downs I wanted in a main event match, and it went 35 or 40 minutes. That's what an Omega and Okada match go. And people give that 6 stars and 6.25 stars. Why can't I like the sports entertainment match? Billy Corgan. I really think he can do something special with NWA. I know Jeff Meacham's a big proponent of Billy Corgan and Dave Lagana, and hopefully he can get some more insight and knowledge for us No DQ Galaxy on that going forward. Billy Corgan has a vision. You know, he's a great songwriter. Smashing Pumpkins was a very popular band in the 90s during a time where there were so many bands, and they were still over and won Grammys. That was the creation of Billy Corgan. He recently released a solo album. Everybody go and listen to Billy WPC, William Patrick Corgan, his song Aeronaut. Go listen to that and tell me this guy won't be able to run a wrestling company. So I don't know what's going to happen. We know he wanted to buy TNA, right? But he didn't because that whole thing that went down with Dixie Carter, Anthem. But how did that work out for them and Global Force? Not very well. Corgan since got the rights to NWA. Okay, if he gets the right people together, the right pieces, gets a TV deal, we're talking something like a TNA. I'm not talking this NWA is going to be anything like WWE. Obviously, it took WCW, a billionaire, and Ted Turner to get that way. But Billy Corgan can maybe get NWA. And does everybody remember TNA when they had NWA titles? You remember that? The weekly pay-per-views? Vince Russo was booking that. That was good television. TNA got off to a good early start, okay? I would love to see, I don't know what the fate of TNA is. If Anthem's not happy and they want to sell, I don't know with Billy Corgan buying the rights to NWA, could he come in and buy TNA? Maybe the video library goes to WWE, so it's like a mutual, like a split purchase because Corgan's okay with having that footage. And wouldn't that be something? If WWE gets that, Broken Matt can finally get his gimmick back, but then Billy Corgan gets everything else that's currently TNA, and then all of a sudden what should have happened a year ago, Corgan now has the second, I guess, appeal in wrestling in the United States. Now, I know there's still Ring of Honor, but I would say TNA is, because they got a network deal, even though it's pop, they're still getting decent YouTube hits on their YouTube channel. I still think TNA is number 2 from a business standpoint over Ring of Honor. I think Ring of Honor needs to expand a little bit more. They still feel a little indie, like Aaron Rift said, production quality. So Corgan, NWA, he owns it. We don't know what's going to happen. TV deal, touring. Can we get some of these, like the smaller venues that still hold like 5,000 to 7,000 people? Like I live in Cleveland, and we have the Wolstein Center here. I think that's what it's still called. It used to be the Cleveland Convocation Center. WCW used to hold Thunders there. Could we ever get a wrestling company that can go to big cities and do a smaller venue, a bigger, smaller venue, if that makes sense, like WCW used to? Heck, WCW used to be able to do the Georgia Dome because they got so big with Hogan and Goldberg in the NWO. Corgan holds the power to legit wrestling competition with the rights to NWA. Because NWA is the history. I mean, to me, it's more historic than WWE in its own weird way. It is. TNA got big because they had NWA. This is all, to me, Billy Corgan knows his wrestling. I liked his late days in TNA as an authority figure. I was getting into it. Sure, TNA was really quirky. We had the Broken Hardys. They had the wannabe shoot fights where they had rounds. I'm sure all of that could have got sorted out, but I don't know. What does people think about Billy Corgan here? I missed some comments, so if you want to retype it. The only thing I want to know is who's going to give WWE a run for their money and actually start trying. Do we need another? Good question. I don't know who can. The only way that's going to happen is if a billionaire with big-time money, Mark Cuban, just a suggestion, partners with like a Billy Corgan in an NWA or buys TNA, and money is there and can be thrown around to build up like WCW was. Now, of course, they need to have smarter people in place so it doesn't burn a hole in anybody's pocket, and then 7 years later, like WCW, it goes out of business or is sold. But if a billionaire gets involved, Corgan's rich, but he's probably worth $30, $40 million. That's not going to do it. We're talking like a Mark Cuban. That's the only way that some of these wrestlers, like Kenny Omega, the Young Bucks, CM Punk, could Daniel Bryan could say, let's make the next WCW. Let's make somebody that can compete against WWE. That's the only way it's going to ever happen. A billionaire needs to get involved. But Billy Corgan can slowly start the process if this NWA thing is strategically planned. And again, I don't know what's going to happen with Ring of Honor. They'll probably stay their own, like the third niche. Lucha Underground is still very niche. TNA is the big question mark. where do they go? Does WWE buy them? Does Anthem keep pushing them? Is all these rumors about them, Anthem not wanting them anymore? Is that just a rumor? We don't know. We don't know. But I think the indie scene revolves around Billy Corgan right now in the NWA because of the history. So with that said, what do I prefer, WWE or indie product? I grew up being a WWE fan. I grew up only watching wrestling on TV, sports entertainment, even ECW, WCW. I didn't start going to indie shows until the early 2000s. It's a completely different beast. When you see a wrestler on TV, you think they are absolutely like this bigger than life star. They're on TV, they're famous. But then when you see them at an indie show, personally selling you their t-shirts and merchandise, a photo op with them, with a fanny pack, collecting their own money, it all of a sudden becomes, wow, they're collecting change on the street corner. Not saying that's what it is, but that it's like they're, that's how they're making money. And you look at these wrestlers differently than when a big corporation like WWE is pushing them and their merchandise is sold at Kmart. And I give credit to the Young Bucks because I think their stuff, or the Bullet Club stuff at least, is sold at Hot Topic. So kudos to that. But you always have WWE pushes things to make it feel more important because they're so big. And I think when you see these wrestlers at an indie show peddling their own merchandise, again, that's what they do. That's how you make the business. But it's just so different. It's such a smaller, more intimate show. And I think that's why a lot of these fans like the indies more than WWE, because they start their own fan chants at an indie show. It's small. Sometimes there's only 100, 150 people at one of those shows. They can be heard. They know the wrestlers hear them when they chant. When you go to WWE, unless it's a SmackDown show or a house show, you probably don't get that same intimate environment. But you do in NXT. That's why indie fans prefer indie wrestling over WWE. They feel more involved, like they're more influenced. And they don't want Roman Reigns to be the guy. Well, in WWE, they make Roman Reigns the guy, which is what you don't want. But in the indies, most indie promoters give you what you want, right? Because they're worried about getting their 300 people to the next show. Where WWE is like, they'll come no matter what. So I actually like both, okay? I love going to smaller indie shows. It's where you really see these wrestlers, these workers, ring announcers, really trying to make a name for themselves. Some of them are just in it for a hobby to do it locally. Some of them want to be discovered and make it to the big time. Vic Charles, is now an NXT or 205 Live announcer. I saw him at the most intimate of, the PWO, the Primes, here in Ohio. He is now part of WWE. So think about that. That's what their ultimate goal is, because, WWE still pays, more than indies, unless you're like a Cody Rhodes or a Young Bucks. That is very hard to do. There are a bunch of wrestlers that can do it, but usually those wrestlers, like a Matt Cross, he has to travel all over the world. He has his own merchandising company. He has to be in Lucha Underground. That's a lot of work. The Young Bucks, just because of the, Dave Meltzer really helped put them over because of his legions of leeches, really helped the Young Bucks get over. Because let's face it, I like the Young Bucks, but they wouldn't be as big as they were if Meltzer didn't start marking out for them. That's the truth. But so I don't know. I mean, I always prefer WWE. Even when everything is down, there is 3 million people on average still watching Raw and SmackDown. There's 1.5 to 1.8 million people subscribed to the network. If more people want to know about WWE news on the internet, it's clearly that why we talk about it the most on No DQ. It's the cream of the crop. If we did this back in 95, 96 when the NWO was new, it would be a completely different game. We'd probably have to have two sides of No DQ. There'd have to be a WCW, three sides. WCW page, a WWF page, and a ECW page. Fans want that back, and I'm thinking maybe by some of them liking WWE product, some of them liking indie product, that the sides are being drawn. But I don't know. I prefer, if I had to pick, I would take WWE because that's what gets the most exposure. I'm not going to see Chris Jericho in the indies. If I want to see Chris Jericho the rest of his career, he might do an indie event here or there in between his stints, but you got to watch WWE. So they're clearly the most accessible with the network, being on not Sci-Fi USA, and they've been on all these networks. But clearly, I would choose WWE over indie wrestling because it's easier to watch. Now, did I miss somebody's question? Jeff Sharp, is that the Razor Sharp? What do you think about the indie scene in Ohio? Since we're talking about indie, I've talked about this before. AWI is legit. I'm going to give Mega Wrestling a pass. Premier Championship and Welterweight Wrestling a pass. UXWA, I'm going to get a pass, and maybe I'm biased there. I don't know. And I'm not going to crap on other non-mentioned local Cleveland, Ohio indie feds, because there's people that work there that I like. There are people that work there that are absolutely scumbags. Lowest of the lows. That's the wrestling business. Snakes. Venomous snakes. I've written, not me, Clueless Wrestling columnist, I believe, I posted it, has written a column about that. Those are the people that turn me off to the horrible promotions. Just get your promoter's license. Run inside. Don't make it look like a yard show. Okay? And don't promote stuff that's not yours. If you literally have a sponsor, promote it, but don't fake a sponsor. Also, don't say somebody's related to a famous person just to get people to your show. I have no respect for any of that. That's garbage. That's not wrestling. And if you're looking to message me, follow me on Twitter, @NoDQ_Virtue. But good question, Jeff Sharp. Thank you. Is it true Impact is going under? I just mentioned that before you joined. I think Anthem is getting sick of losing money. But again, this could linger on for a couple more years. But I would not be surprised if they wanted to sell. And who are they going to go to? The people with the money. WWE, buying the tape library. And like I said, I hope Billy Corgan opens his checkbook. What about Progress? I'm not sure what you mean, what about Progress? Is that Progress Wrestling? If I don't know what Progress Wrestling is, tweet me. I don't know what you meant by that, but tweet me and I will look into that and give you a good answer. But I am moving on to Survivor Series. Or should I say bragging rights? Now, I don't know how many bragging rights pay-per-views there were, 1 or 2, but they used to have them when they had the brand split. And I know they've had Survivor Series before where it's Raw versus SmackDown. Raw versus SmackDown is awful. I don't like it because you have heels versus heels. That doesn't make sense logically to me. You have heels and baby faces because they're on Raw having to team up against, the greater kind against SmackDown. I just don't like it. So I'm very skeptical, and I'm going to be very, very critical about this upcoming Survivor Series because I would rather have no brand split anymore. You can feature your big-time players on Raw. Maybe, the ones that aren't in big programs you can feature on SmackDown, make SmackDown the true B show. Maybe have a couple stars on SmackDown here and there just to keep ratings up. But I think it should be one big pot of talent. And when you get to a Survivor Series, you could have true heels versus true babyface teams. And then you don't have to do this probably stupid non-title match of Jinder Mahal versus Brock Lesnar. So I am not a fan whatsoever of this brand split Survivor Series. I just feel like it's bragging rights. And, everybody's going to tune in because they're going to wonder when Raw is going to attack SmackDown or however that's going to go. I'm just not a big fan of it. I think it's absolutely overdone. And, everybody, like I said, heels and baby faces wearing the same blue shirts. And I'm sure we're going to see heels and baby faces wearing the same red Raw shirts. I just don't buy it. So that's just my opinion. We'll see. Maybe WWE can be creative with this and do something that'll draw me, to this Survivor Series more than I am right now because to me it's just like blah. But, and what do we have? Miz versus Baron Corbin? That's a heel and a heel. I am a little intrigued with Usos versus Rollins and Ambrose. And then what, Bliss versus Natty? That's another heel versus heel. That's crazy. And then even Mahal and Lesnar. I mean, Lesnar's probably going to act as the baby face. But that to me, it's not appealing. There's just nothing appealing about Survivor Series right now. But we'll see. let me see. Do I have any other? Yes. The only thing exciting about Under Siege was Natty going Under Siege on Zack Ryder. Yeah, we saw that still on the line. That's on the line. You know who I sounded like? Have you ever watched The Internship with Vince Vaughn? That's what I sounded like right there. Yeah, that was funny. You know, I don't know if she was just like, hey, back up. And she accidentally had her hand on his junk, but that was funny. So that's pretty much it. I do want to briefly talk about, because this has been going, it doesn't tell me, 30 minutes. Yeah, I'm about where I want to be. The movie. So it's still technically the 29th. By the way, happy birthday to me. Tomorrow, October 30th, is my birthday. Be sure to go on Twitter or my Facebook page and wish me a happy birthday. Anyway, I'm a big Wes Craven fan, and I think Wes Craven is the number one horror director, writer of all time. Yes, John Carpenter fans, it's Wes Craven. He not only catered to the 70s kids of scaring them with The Hills Have Eyes and Last House on the Left or whatever. He had the Nightmare on Elm Street series in the 80s and early 90s. Then he directed the Scream movies in the 90s. He catered to 3 decades of kids scaring them. And he had some nice one-offs too, and that's what I wanted to share with you. Of course, I got the double feature here, but this is Wes Craven's Shocker. So if we can relate this to wrestling. Everybody remember Nails? That's not him, but kind of reminds me of Nails. And then, of course, I thought this was highly underrated, The People Under the Stairs. Very good, very, very great horror movies to watch if you want to watch some, off the beaten path ones. And they are Wes Craven movies, so I highly suggest watching these. That's my movie pick for this video, ViRTUE's Rage. Double. The Shocker and People Under the Stairs by Wes Craven. And finally, yes, Chris, you might want to watch this video from the beginning when it's over. I did talk about the WWE releases again, and go to the No DQ YouTube page and find Aaron Rift, and I actually joined him on that video. We talked about it for about 10 minutes on that video as well. My game of the day. This came out on Friday. Unbelievable game. Super Mario Odyssey for the Nintendo Switch. The Nintendo Switch is the hottest game system in the world this year. And the numbers, it's outselling, overall it hasn't, but it's outselling PlayStation and Xbox right now. You got the Zelda Breath of the Wild. You got Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is the same game as the Wii U, basically. You have this game. You have Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. You have Splatoon 2. I mean, we're talking all Game of the Year candidates. Just awesome system. And Nintendo will always be Nintendo. But I'll tell you this. There's no other game system out there that you can play on your TV at home and then take it away. And I'm not talking about the Wii U. And you can drive miles and miles away and continue to play it. So Super Mario Odyssey is addicting. It's going to cost me several hours of my evenings this week. But I had to show you that. So we're hitting about 33 minutes. I said I wanted to go 20, 25. Well, we know how that goes. You guys ask questions. I get to talking. I'll look at a couple more questions before I call it evening. So I see that Scott says, how do you feel about wrestling shying away from being more organic and letting the fans dictate popularity than forcing who gets a push? That happened a long time ago, Scott. The internet, dirt sheets. Before it was very, if you were lucky to read a dirt sheet back in the 90s, you went on the library at school in the late 90s to read the spoilers for the taped Raw every 2 weeks. You were very privileged. And not everybody had the internet then, and not until the early 2000s is when everybody finally got the internet. But that's exactly why we're where we're at. You can't. Back in the day, we could accept when WWE wanted to force something. If we didn't like who they pushed, we would like the guy against them. We would like the undercard. But today, there's so much of why they do things they do, and we know so much about the business. People that in it, insider terms have been, fans can read about all this stuff online. WWE's pushing Roman because he's catering to the kids and women, and he sells stuff at Kmart and Walmart, and people don't agree with that. So it is what it is, and you either accept it or you don't. me, I try to accept both. You know, I really do. I'm not to me, I don't like Roman Reigns like I like a Chris Jericho, okay? But the fact that everybody hates, not everybody, but most of everybody hates Roman because WWE pushes him like the top dog, I'll tell you what, it makes me like him, you know? And it's not that I'm trying to work for a big wrestling company. I like just working with my little indie promotions like UXWA near Cleveland. To me, I would never have the stress of working for WWE. I have a career. I have, you know, a good job. And if I didn't have that job tomorrow, I have 5 other places that want me to do what I do. So, and that's nothing with this wrestling stuff. So it's just my opinion. I've watched wrestling for 30 years. I've talked to people in the business. I've been in locker rooms, nothing huge. No like TNA locker room, no WWE locker room. But, you know, I've asked people that have been in those locker rooms. So I get knowledge from them. I'll admit when I'm wrong. You know, the thing is, you can't be self-centered and cocky, but you can be. Like, you know, Enzo Amore, he's doing everything right because he's getting himself over, and Vince McMahon is allowing it. But, like, if you're not at that level with that luxury, and I'm not going to mention any names, Kenny, but people know who you are. Don't say this is who I am and then put a crown on your head. You know what I mean? Big Vito said it best. Earn your respect. I was guilty of that. I wanted everybody to like me because I thought I'm always right. If I'm not right, my opinions are better than everyone else's. And working with Aaron and No DQ and Jeff Meacham and Greg Cherry and the others, I've learned that, you know, everybody has their differences of opinion, and it's awesome to be able to talk to someone else. And, you know, when Greg Cherry disagrees with me, you know, I don't like Mauro Ranallo, and he turns his head and snickers. But I think deep down inside he accepts that I don't like Mauro. He's not my cup of tea, but I get why people like him. And we end up not hating each other because we have a difference of opinion. It just is what it is. Jamie Glover, when is the next show you are involved in, Virtue, like wrestling-wise? Well, I think UXWA, hopefully we're going to get a show here, and we'll get the flyer out for December. We will keep you updated on that. But if we don't, then we're definitely going to have January. And yes, we will have 5 total shows. We already did a show, you know, a month or so ago. We will get the rest of the shows out of the way, but holidays complicate things. Too many indie feds in Cleveland complicate things. People sneaking in and getting, you know, bookings at a venue that should. Everybody's pissing on their territory when everybody should be on the same page. You know what I mean? You're not going to grow. If all these small feds are happy with their 75 fans, what are you thinking? Why don't you start, you know, teaming up with other feds or not pissing on, you know, their territory and just being more sociable with each other, and maybe you'll all start drawing 150, 200, getting AIW type crowds, 300-400 people when they had Johnny Gargano. So I don't know. But do you see Nia and Neville being released? Neville, yeah. I don't know how that's going to happen. WWE may be playing chicken with him. But Nia, she's cousins with The Rock. I don't think she's going anywhere. I think Nia's in for a monster push. That's just my gut feeling. And yes, when I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Call me out on it. I don't care. When I'm right, though, and then I end up digging back up, showing you why I was right, people still tell me that I'm full of crap. Look, I only go back and prove that I'm right when people say I don't know what I'm talking about. I would never do that if people just, you know, accepted my opinion for what it was. But one more question. What up from Chi-Town? Todd. Chicago. The Cubs did win the World Series last year. Unfortunately, I'm hoping the Astros win it this year. But we'll see what happens. So thank you for joining. We're almost at 40 minutes. If you missed the rest of this video, it will be right here on my Facebook page. And yes, I'm going to post it on No DQ. So people that didn't even know about this thing today, that just only go to NoDQ.com, they will see it on a ViRTUE's Rage link on the opinion section. Again, if you want to see, you're going to continue to see ViRTUE on No DQ panel videos. I will be on multiple preview and review videos. I'm just here for color commentary. Aaron Rift is the guy that does all the news. Jeff Meacham's the guy that does all the interviews. And then Greg and the trivia, and then Greg Cherry on that too. I'm just the guy that gives you my opinion, and you either like it or you don't. But thank you for watching.